Imagine for a moment that inside your chest there is a garden that has been waiting for rain, not a storm, but a gentle, nourishing mist that allows everything to soften, to breathe, and to finally rest. Tonight, you don't need to do anything. You don't need to be anyone. You are about to embark on a journey through stories that have traveled across centuries, carried in the hearts of wise teachers who understood the secret to finding calm in the midst of chaos. Settle into your bed, feeling the support beneath you. These are not just tales to pass the time. They are ancient keys designed to unlock the spiritual awakening that lies dormant within your own weary mind. We are gathering here, a quiet community of souls across the world, all seeking the same sanctuary. Let the wisdom of Buddhist philosophy act as a balm for your thoughts. Close your eyes. Your only task now is to listen, to let go, and to drift into the deep peace that is already waiting for you. Long ago in Japan, during the turbulent years of the Meiji era, when the secluded island nation finally opened its wooden gates to the rushing tides of the outside world, the air itself seemed to vibrate with change. Old traditions were fading like mist in the morning sun, and new ideas from the West were flooding in, challenging everything people thought they knew. Amidst this whirlwind of modernization, a renowned teacher named Master Kaizen lived in a small, weather-beaten temple on a quiet hillside. While the cities below buzzed with the noise of progress, Master Kaizen's dwelling remained a sanctuary of stillness, a place where time seemed to slow down and rest. It was to this refuge that a university professor came one rainy afternoon. This scholar was a man of immense intellect, his mind a vast library of Western logic, scientific theories, and rigid opinions. He had traveled far, claiming he wanted to learn about Zen stories and the path of enlightenment, but in truth, he carried the heavy burden of his own certainty. Master Kaizen welcomed the stranger with a bow that was as fluid as water. He invited the professor to sit on the tatami mats, where the air smelled faintly of dried straw and aged incense. Without a word, the master began the ritual of preparing tea. The only sounds in the room were the soft hiss of the iron kettle over charcoal and the rhythmic drumming of rain against the paper screens. However, the professor could not bear the silence. He began to speak, and once he started, he could not stop. He talked about his degrees, his published papers, his critiques of ancient scriptures, and his own elaborate views on the nature of consciousness. His words filled the small room, leaving no space for breath or pause. He was desperate to impress the master, to show that he already understood everything there was to understand. Master Kaizen simply smiled, his face as calm as a moonlit lake. He listened without interrupting, nodding gently as he lifted the heavy iron teapot. He placed a delicate porcelain cup in front of the scholar and began to pour. The steaming green liquid swirled into the cup, rising higher and higher. The tea reached the rim, a trembling meniscus of emerald water. But the master did not stop pouring. The tea spilled over the edge, running down the sides of the cup, pooling on the wooden saucer, and finally dripping onto the professor's neatly pressed trousers. "Master, stop!" the professor shouted, leaping up and breaking his stream of words. "Are you blind? The cup is over full. No more will go in." Master Kaizen set the teapot down with deliberate slowness. He looked deep into the scholar's eyes, with a gaze that was neither judging nor mocking, but filled with infinite patience. "Like this cup," the master said, his voice soft, yet piercing through the noise of the storm outside. "You are full of your own opinions and speculations. You come asking for teaching, but your mind has no room to receive it. How can I show you the way of Zen unless you first empty your cup?" In the sudden silence that followed, the sound of the rain seemed to deepen. The professor stood frozen, the warmth of the spilled tea seeping through his clothes, realizing that his intelligence had become a barrier, not a bridge. To learn, to truly rest, and to find peace, one must first let go of what they think they know. One must create space. Just as you cannot pour fresh water into a vessel filled with stale wine, you cannot pour the peace of sleep into a mind filled with the day's clutter. You must tilt the cup. You must let it all flow out. In the same era of shifting shadows and light, wandering monks traveled the treacherous mountain roads of Japan, owning nothing but the robes on their backs and the begging bowls in their hands. They were like clouds, drifting wherever the wind of karma blew them, seeking not comfort, but the raw truth of existence. Among these travelers was a master named Ryokan, a man who had once tutored royalty, but now preferred the company of pine trees and cold stars. One evening, a fierce storm descended upon the valley of Echigo. The rain fell in sheets of grey steel, turning the dirt paths into rushing rivers of mud. Ryokan, soaked to the bone and shivering, saw a dim light flickering from a farmhouse in the distance. He approached the humble dwelling, his straw sandals disintegrating with every step. A woman opened the door, her face etched with lines of worry that no age should bear. Seeing the monk's pitiful state, she ushered him inside, offering him a dry corner near the hearth. But Ryokan, with his deep sensitivity to the human heart, immediately felt the heavy atmosphere in the room. It was thick with unspoken grief. The children sat silently in the shadows, their eyes wide and fearful. The woman moved with the heaviness of someone who expects a blow. When Ryokan gently inquired about her sorrow, the dam broke. She wept as she told him of her husband, a man who had been consumed by the demons of gambling and sake. When he won, he vanished into the pleasure quarters. When he lost, which was often, he returned home filled with a violent rage, terrorizing his family and selling their meager possessions to fund his addiction. "He will be home soon," she whispered, trembling, "and he will be drunk." "Do not worry," Ryokan said, his voice a warm blanket in the cold room. "I will handle him. Go to sleep with your children. Rest your hearts." He gave the woman the few coins he had received from begging that week. "Buy some good sake and prepare a fine meal with this," he instructed. "Then leave us." Around midnight, the heavy wooden door was kicked open. The husband stumbled in, bringing the storm inside with him. He reeked of sour wine and defeat, his eyes wild and bloodshot. "Woman," he bellowed, "where is my food?" "I am here," Ryokan said calmly from the fireside. "Your wife was kind enough to let me shelter from the rain. In gratitude, I have bought sake and fish. Please, share this meal with me." The drunkard blinked, confused by the sight of a monk offering him wine instead of a sermon. His anger deflated into a muddled curiosity. He sat down, drank greedily, and ate the fish, grunting in satisfaction. Ryokan poured cup after cup for him, saying nothing, simply offering his silent, steady presence. Eventually, the alcohol and the warmth of the fire overcame the man, and he passed out on the floor, snoring loudly. Ryokan did not sleep. He sat in meditation beside the slumped figure of the gambler all night long. He did not judge the man. He did not look at him with disgust. He looked at him as a mother looks at a feverish child, holding a space of pure, unconditional acceptance. He breathed in the man's suffering and breathed out peace. When the pale light of dawn crept through the paper screens, the husband awoke with a throbbing headache and no memory of the night before. He sat up, startled to find a monk sitting beside him, in perfect stillness. "Who are you?" the man asked, his voice rough. "I am Ryokan," the monk replied softly. The color drained from the gambler's face. Ryokan. The name was known even in this remote village. This was the former teacher of the emperor, a living saint, and he, a wretched drunkard, had made this holy man pour his wine and watch him sleep in his own filth. A wave of shame crashed over him, more powerful than any lecture. "Master," he stammered, bowing his head to the floor, "I am dirt. I am not worthy to be in the same room as you." Ryokan's eyes crinkled with genuine warmth. "My friend," he said, "everything in this world is impermanent. Your life is passing like a flash of lightning in the summer sky. If you continue this way, you will miss the precious chance to be a human being. But in this moment, right now, the past is gone. You can choose a new direction." The man began to sob, great heaving tears that washed away years of hardened defenses. For the first time, he wasn't being scolded. He was being seen. He begged to carry Ryokan's sandals as the monk prepared to leave. He walked with him for miles, unwilling to leave the field of compassion that surrounded the master. Finally, Ryokan turned and gently told him to go back. The man stood on the road, watching the monk's figure disappear into the morning mist. He never touched dice or sake again. It was not a harsh rebuke that changed him, but the profound power of meditation for anxiety, applied through presence, the radical act of meeting a soul exactly where it is, without trying to fix it until it heals itself. In the same misty mountains where legends were born, there lived another master named Hakuin. He was a teacher of the Rinzai school, known for a style of Zen that was like a thunderclap, sudden, sharp, and illuminating. He lived a life of such purity and simplicity in a small, dilapidated temple that the villagers revered him as a living Buddha. Near his temple lived a wealthy family who owned a thriving food store. Their daughter, a girl of striking beauty and gentle demeanor, was the jewel of the village. However, a storm was brewing in her life. One day, her parents discovered, to their horror, that she was pregnant. In a traditional society where honor was everything, this was a catastrophe. The parents were furious. They demanded to know the name of the father. The girl, terrified and weeping, refused to speak. But under their relentless pressure, her resolve finally crumbled. In a moment of panic, looking for a name that might shield her true lover, she whispered, "Hakuin." The parents were stunned. The holy man, the ascetic who preached detachment, their shock quickly turned to a white-hot rage. They marched up the hill to the temple, a procession of indignation, shouting insults before they even reached the gate. "You wolf in sheep's clothing," the father screamed, confronting Hakuin, who was sweeping the courtyard. "You have defiled our daughter. You speak of Dharma, yet you act like a beast. The child she carries is yours." Hakuin paused his sweeping. He looked at the red-faced father, then at the sobbing mother. He did not defend himself. He did not argue. He did not list his vows of celibacy. He simply looked at them with eyes as clear as a mountain stream and said 2 words. "Is that so?" News of the scandal spread through the village like wildfire. Hakuin's reputation, built over decades of selfless service, was destroyed in an afternoon. Students stopped coming to his meditation hall. Donors withdrew their support. When he walked through the village, people spat on the ground and turned their backs. Hakuin remained unmoved. He continued his daily routine, sitting in Buddhist meditation, tending his garden, chanting the sutras as if nothing had changed. He did not fight the rumors. He accepted the loss of his reputation as easily as a tree accepts the falling of its leaves in autumn. When the baby was born, the angry grandparents brought the infant to the temple and thrust it into Hakuin's arms. "This is your brat," they sneered. "You take care of it. Is that so?" Hakuin said again, gently taking the crying bundle. For a year, the master became a nursemaid. He, who had spent his life in silent contemplation, now spent his days begging for milk from neighbors who looked at him with scorn. He washed diapers in the freezing stream. He rocked the baby through sleepless nights, his old face glowing with a tenderness that confused those who watched him. He cared for the child, not out of obligation, but with total devotion, for the baby was life, and life required care. Eventually, the young mother could no longer bear the weight of her lie. Seeing the saintly old man suffering for her sin, she confessed the truth to her parents. The real father was a young fishmonger from the village. Mortified, the parents rushed back to the temple. They prostrated themselves on the ground, heads touching the dirt, begging for forgiveness. "We were blind," they wailed. "We have slandered a saint. Please, give us back the child." and forgive our terrible mistake." Hakuin looked at them, holding the baby he had come to love. He did not show anger at their previous accusations, nor did he show triumph at his vindication. He handed the child back with the same gentle care he had shown when receiving it. "Is that so?" he said. "This is the power of a mind that has found its true center. Praise and blame, gain and loss, fame and disgrace to Hakuin. These were just passing clouds in the vast sky of awareness. He did not resist the storm, and he did not cling to the sunlight. He simply remained. These three stories, though separated by time and characters, weave together a single golden thread of wisdom that is essential for anyone seeking rest in a restless world. Whether it is the professor whose cup was too full to learn, the monk Ryokan, who met a drunkard with love instead of judgment, or Hakuin, who faced a life-destroying lie with perfect calm, they all point to the same secret. The peace we are searching for, that deep, unshakable sanctuary where sleep comes easily, is not found by rearranging the furniture of our lives. It is not found by forcing the world to behave the way we want it to. It is found by changing our relationship to whatever is happening right now. Notice how none of these masters fought against reality. Master Kaizen didn't argue with the professor. He showed him a mirror. Ryokan didn't lecture the gambler. He offered him companionship. Hakuin didn't defend his ego. He accepted the moment as it was. They practiced what in Buddhist philosophy is often called radical acceptance. In our own lives, we often lie awake at night because we are resisting. We resist the replay of an awkward conversation. We resist the worry about tomorrow's meeting. We resist the feeling of being awake itself. We tighten our bodies and sharpen our minds, trying to solve the problem of the present moment. But what if you practice the "is that so" of Hakuin tonight? When a worry arises, is that so? When a sound disturbs you, is that so? When your mind says you will never fall asleep, is that so? This is not about being passive or weak. It is the ultimate strength. It is the strength of water that flows around the rock rather than shattering against it. It is the spaciousness of the beginner's mind that the tea master taught, a mind that is empty of judgment and therefore open to peace. Tonight, imagine your mind is that empty cup. You don't need to figure anything out. You don't need to defend yourself against your thoughts. You can simply let them be, just as Ryokan let the storm rage outside while keeping the fire warm within. By stepping back and witnessing the flow of your experience without trying to control it, you align yourself with the natural rhythm of the universe. And in that alignment, the struggle ends, and the gentle tide of sleep can finally wash in. In the bustling temple courtyards of 17th century Japan, where the scent of sandalwood incense mingled with the earthy smell of rain on stone, lived a teacher named Bankei. He was a master of the unborn mind, teaching that enlightenment wasn't something you had to strive and struggle for, but something you were born with, perfect and complete. His teachings were so simple and direct that crowds gathered from all over the country to hear him. Farmers left their fields, merchants closed their shops, and monks from other sects deserted their monasteries to sit at his feet. This popularity, however, bred jealousy. One afternoon, as Bankei sat on a raised platform, addressing a sea of listeners, a priest from the Nichiren sect pushed his way through the crowd. The Nichiren school was known for its fiery devotion and militant approach to spreading the Dharma. This particular priest was furious that his own congregation had dwindled, drawn away by Bankei's gentle wisdom. He marched to the front, his face red with indignation, and shouted over the quiet assembly, "Hey, Zen teacher, wait a minute. Anyone can respect you and obey you because you are a smooth talker, but I don't respect you. Can you make me obey you?" The crowd gasped. The air grew thick with tension. In feudal Japan, such a public challenge was a grave insult. People shifted nervously, expecting a battle of wills, a display of psychic powers, or a fierce theological debate. Bankei looked at the angry priest. He didn't stand up. He didn't raise his voice. He simply smiled with the warmth of a grandfather greeting a grandchild. "Come up here beside me," Bankei said softly, "and I will show you." The priest, thinking Bankei was taking the bait, puffed out his chest. "I will show you up for the fraud you are," he thought. He stomped up the wooden steps and stood over the seated master, arms crossed, radiating defiance. Bankei gestured to his left. "Come over to my left side, please." The priest, wanting to be in the right position to deliver his next insult, stepped to the left. "Actually," Bankei said, his voice conversational and pleasant, "we might hear each other better if you were on my right side. Would you mind stepping over here?" The priest, caught in the rhythm of the request, stepped to the right. Bankei beamed at him. "You see," he observed gently, "you are obeying me perfectly. I think you are actually a very gentle and cooperative person. Now, please sit down and listen." The priest stood frozen. The anger that had been fueling him suddenly had nowhere to go. It evaporated like steam. He realized that in his eagerness to prove his disobedience, he had followed every instruction the master gave. But more importantly, he felt the complete lack of resistance from Bankei. It is impossible to fight a man who refuses to be your enemy. Sheepishly, the priest sat down. The crowd exhaled. In less than a minute, without a single argument, Bankei had demonstrated the supreme power of non-resistance. He didn't fight fire with fire. He fought fire with water. He met rigidity with fluidity. This is a profound secret for our own peace of mind. Often, the voices in our heads, the anxiety, the criticism, the shoulds, are like that angry priest. They shout and demand our attention. We usually fight back, arguing with our own thoughts. But what if we treated them like Bankei treated the intruder? What if, instead of fighting the noise, we simply invited it in, moved it gently aside, and continued to rest in our own natural meditation for anxiety? At the Kenin Temple in Kyoto, the oldest Zen monastery in the capital, the seasons marked time with breathtaking beauty. Cherry blossoms fell like pink snow in spring, and maple leaves burned crimson in autumn. Here lived a master named Mokurai, Silent Thunder, a teacher known for his demanding standards. Among his many disciples was a mere child, a 12-year-old boy named Toyo. Toyo was too young to be a formal monk, but he possessed a spirit that burned with determination. Every morning and evening, he watched the older monks file into Mokurai's private room for Sanzen, the sacred interview where the master would test their understanding of koans, those impossible riddles designed to break the logical mind. Toyo yearned to join them. "Please, master," he begged, bowing low. "Let me enter Sanzen. Give me a koan." Mokurai looked at the small boy. "You are young," he said sternly. "The work of Zen is harder than climbing a mountain of swords. Wait until you are older." But Toyo persisted, his eyes shining with tears of frustration. Finally, the master relented. "Very well. Come this evening." That night, Toyo entered the room, his heart pounding against his ribs. He bowed 3 times and sat before Silent Thunder. "You can hear the sound of 2 hands clapping," Mokurai said, bringing his palms together with a sharp clack. "Now, show me the sound of 1 hand." Toyo bowed and retreated to his room. The problem consumed him, the sound of 1 hand. He sat by the window, listening to the night. From the geisha district in the distance, the faint, mournful twang of a shamisen drifted on the wind. "Ah, I have it," he whispered. The next night, when asked for the sound of 1 hand, Toyo mimicked the music of the geishas. No, Mokurai said dismissively. "That is not the sound of 1 hand. That is music. You haven't got it at all." Toyo returned to his meditation. He moved to a quieter spot. He heard the drip, drip, drip of water falling from the eaves. That must be it, he thought. But the next night, Mokurai rejected the sound of dripping water. Toyo tried everything. He brought the sound of the wind sighing through the pines. He brought the cry of an owl. He brought the buzzing of locusts in the summer heat. 10 times, 20 times, he returned to the master. "No!" Mokurai shouted. "The sound of one hand is not heard with the ears. Stop bringing me dead sounds. Bring me the living truth." A year passed. Toyo was exhausted. He had listened to every sound the physical world could offer, and every answer had been rejected. He had reached the end of his cleverness. He had reached the end of his mind. One night, Toyo sat in the meditation hall. He was no longer trying to find an answer. He was no longer listening for a sound. He sat in a state of complete exhaustion and surrender. The listening turned inward. He listened to the silence between the sounds. He listened to the silence before sound arises. He forgot his name. He forgot the temple. He forgot the koan. There was only a vast, boundless silence, a soundless sound that vibrated with the pulse of the universe itself. When he entered Mokurai's room the next morning, Toyo did not imitate anything. He sat down and remained perfectly silent, radiating a deep, unshakable peace. He didn't need to do anything. He was the sound of one hand. Mokurai smiled gently. "You have heard it," he whispered. Toyo had discovered the secret of Zen stories. True understanding comes only when we stop trying to grasp it with our intellect. He found the answer, not by adding more information, but by stripping away everything that was not true. He moved from the noise of the world to the silence of the source. There is a profound beauty in Toyo's journey. He started like all of us do, thinking that the answer was something he could go out and find, something he could grab and bring back like a trophy. He thought the sound of one hand was something out there. But through exhaustion and failure, he was forced to let go of his cleverness. He was forced into a state of not knowing. In Zen, this state is called great doubt, but it is deeply connected to what we call beginner's mind. It is the willingness to be completely empty of answers. We live in a world that demands we be experts. We are expected to have opinions on everything, to have a plan for tomorrow, to know exactly who we are and where we are going. This pressure to know creates a tremendous amount of tension in our minds. It keeps us awake at night, rehearsing our knowledge, defending our positions, planning our next move. But the story of Toyo whispers a different possibility. What if your greatest wisdom lies not in what you know, but in your willingness to be silent? What if the peace you seek is found in the space where you stop trying to figure it all out? Toyo didn't solve the riddle by thinking harder. He solved it by stopping. He solved it by listening to the silence that underlies all noise. Tonight, you can practice this same not knowing. You don't need to solve the riddle of your life right now. You don't need to have the answer to your problems before you sleep. You can simply rest in the soundless sound of your own breath. You can let go of the need to be the expert on your own existence and just be the witness of it. Like Toyo, you might find that when you stop searching for the music of the world, you start hearing the silence of the universe. And that silence is the most comfortable bed you will ever lie in. High in the misty peaks of ancient China, where the clouds touched the earth and bamboo forests whispered secrets to the wind, there lived an old woman of considerable means and deep spiritual devotion. For 20 years, she had supported a solitary monk. She built him a small hut on her property, provided him with robes, and carried food to his doorstep every single day so that he could focus entirely on his meditation. This act of dana, or generous giving, was her practice. She asked for nothing in return, only that the monk dedicate himself to enlightenment. But after 2 decades of this service, a question began to nag at her heart. Had the monk truly awakened? Or had he merely become comfortable in his isolation, using her generosity to hide from the world? To test his spiritual progress, she devised a plan. She called upon a young woman from the village, a girl known for her warmth, wit, and striking beauty. "Go to the monk's hut," the old woman instructed. "Bring him his meal. But then, I want you to embrace him gently. Put your arms around him and ask him, 'What now? How does this feel?' Then come back and tell me exactly what he says." The young woman, though hesitant, agreed to the test. She climbed the winding path to the hermitage. She found the monk sitting in stoic silence, his face like a carved mask. After setting down the food, she moved closer. She wrapped her arms around his stiff shoulders, bringing the warmth of human contact to his cold world. "Master," she whispered softly, "how do you feel in this moment?" The monk did not move. He did not look at her. He pulled away sharply, as if burned by fire. His voice was cold, hollow, and utterly devoid of feeling. "An old tree grows on a cold rock in winter," he recited, his tone flat. "Nowhere is there any warmth." The young woman released him, bowed, and returned down the mountain to report his words. When the old woman heard the monk's response, "An old tree on a cold rock," her face darkened with a storm of disappointment. Her eyes flashed with the fierce compassion of a grandmother who sees a child playing with a knife. "To think I have fed that dead log for 20 years, she exclaimed. "He showed no consideration for your humanity. He didn't need to be seduced, but he should have shown kindness. He should have offered a word of wisdom or understanding. Instead, he clung to his detachment like a shield, mistaking coldness for purity." She did not hesitate. She marched up the mountain with a torch in her hand. She drove the monk out of the hermitage and, right there in front of him, set the hut on fire. She burned it to the ground. This shocking ending often leaves listeners breathless. Why would a pious woman destroy a temple? Because she understood that true Zen is not about becoming a stone or a block of wood. It is not about shutting out the world to achieve a sterile peace. The monk had achieved a kind of Zen meditation focus, yes, but he had lost his heart. He had mistaken numbness for equanimity. The old woman's fire was a teaching, a drastic, necessary act to wake him up from his cold slumber. She destroyed his shelter to save his soul. She showed him that true spirituality must include warmth, responsiveness, and the ability to meet life in all its forms with a living, beating heart. In medieval Japan, the path of the spirit was not reserved for men alone. In the quiet valleys, hidden away from the political intrigues of the capital, were convents where women shaved their heads, donned simple robes, and pursued the rigorous training of Zen with a ferocity that matched any samurai. One such nun was named Eshun. She was a woman of extraordinary beauty, a beauty that seemed to shine from the inside out, undimmed by her plain clothes or shorn hair. But more striking than her appearance was her intensity. She practiced with a burning sincerity, determined to cut through the illusions of the world. Eshun lived in a temple where monks and nuns sometimes gathered for joint ceremonies. Her presence, naturally, drew attention. Despite the strict rules of monastic celibacy, several monks found their eyes wandering toward her during chanting. They struggled with feelings that had no place in the meditation hall. One monk, overwhelmed by infatuation and unable to contain his heart, broke the gravest of rules. He wrote a passionate love letter to Eshun. In it, he poured out his longing, his admiration for her grace, and his desperate wish for a secret meeting. He slipped the letter into her sleeve as they passed in the corridor. Such a breach of conduct could lead to expulsion, shame, and scandal. Eshun found the letter. She read it alone in her cell. She did not tear it up. She did not report the monk to the abbot. She did not gossip with the other nuns. She simply kept it. The next morning, the great master of the temple ascended the dais to give a lecture to the assembled community. Hundreds of monks and nuns sat in perfect rows, silent and attentive. The atmosphere was thick with solemnity. When the master finished his talk, he asked, as was the custom, "Does anyone have a question or a matter to bring before the assembly?" Eshun stood up. The rustle of her robes was the only sound in the vast hall. She reached into her sleeve and pulled out the love letter. She unfolded it slowly, her movements deliberate and calm. She turned toward the place where the infatuated monk was sitting, shrinking into his cushion, his face draining of color. "You wrote this to me." Eshun's voice rang out clear and strong, devoid of malice, but filled with unyielding truth. "You say here that you love me so much, you cannot live without me. If you truly love me that much, come here and embrace me now, in front of everyone." The hall erupted in gasps. The silence shattered. The monk turned beet red, trembling with mortification. He couldn't move. He couldn't speak. His secret fantasy, when dragged into the bright light of reality, withered instantly. Eshun waited a moment, standing like a pillar of fire. When the monk did not move, she folded the letter, bowed to the master, and sat down. This was not cruelty. It was the sharp sword of wisdom. Eshun practiced what we might call radical honesty. She understood that secrets and hidden desires fester in the dark. By bringing the hidden into the light, she liberated both herself and the monk. She showed that true spiritual practice cannot hide in shadows. It must be transparent. It must be brave enough to stand up in the middle of the hall and say, "This is the truth. Deal with it." In our own lives, we often hide from our own truths, burying our desires and fears. Eshun teaches us that there is immense freedom in having nothing to hide. Let us return to the gentle hermit, Ryokan, the monk who lived simply at the foot of Mount Kugami. His hut was little more than a shack, with a roof that leaked rain and walls that let in the wind. He owned almost nothing: a begging bowl, a few brushes for his calligraphy, and a single spare robe. Yet, Ryokan was the richest man in Japan, for he needed nothing. He spent his days playing hide-and-seek with the village children, writing poems about the seasons, and sitting in deep sleep-like meditation under the moon. He was so trusting that he never locked his door. Indeed, there was no lock to turn. One evening, Ryokan returned from a long walk in the forest to find a stranger inside his hut. It was a thief, rummaging desperately through the empty corners, looking for something, anything, of value to steal. The thief, realizing he had been caught, froze, expecting a shout or a blow, but Ryokan stood in the doorway, blocking the moonlight, and smiled. "You must have come a long way to visit me," Ryokan said, his voice soft with genuine concern. "It is a pity you found nothing. It would be rude of me to let you leave empty-handed." The thief stared, dumbfounded. Was this monk mad? Ryokan began to untie the sash of his robe. "Here," he said, slipping the garment off his shoulders. "Please, take my clothes as a gift. The night is getting cold." He folded the robe neatly and placed it in the trembling hands of the bewildered criminal. "Go quickly now," Ryokan whispered kindly. The thief, clutching the old robe, scrambled out of the hut and vanished into the darkness, confused by a kindness he had never known. Ryokan was left standing naked in his small hut. He walked to the window and looked out. The rain clouds had cleared, and a magnificent full moon hung in the sky, illuminating the pine trees with a silvery glow. It was breathtakingly beautiful, a pearl of light in the ocean of the night. Ryokan sighed, a deep sound of pure contentment mixed with a tinge of regret. He picked up his brush and wrote a haiku. The thief left it behind. "The moon at my window. Poor fellow," Ryokan murmured to the stars. "I wish I could have given him this beautiful moon as well." This story captures the very essence of the awakened heart. Ryokan didn't see a criminal. He saw a suffering human being. He didn't feel violated. He felt generous. He didn't focus on what he lost, a ragged robe. He focused on what he still had, the infinite beauty of the universe. The thief sought wealth in things, and finding none, he left poor. Ryokan sought wealth in the present moment, and having the moon, he remained rich. As you lie in bed tonight, you might feel like the thief searching for something to make you feel secure, worried about what you lack. But Ryokan invites you to look out the window of your own mind. The worries are just the old robes. You can give them away. What remains is the moon, the luminous, silent awareness that is always with you. You cannot lose it, and no one can steal it from you. It is your birthright. These 3 stories, the burning hut, the public challenge, and the gift of the robe, reveal the many faces of true compassion. We often think compassion means just being nice or soft, but authentic Buddhist stories show us that wisdom requires a much larger toolkit. Compassion can be fierce, like the old woman burning down the hut to wake the monk from his stagnation. Compassion can be bold, like Eshen exposing the secret to free the monk from his delusion. And compassion can be tender, like Ryokan offering his only clothes to a thief. What connects them all? In each case, the master responded not to the surface desire, but to the deeper need. The isolated monk needed a shock. The infatuated monk needed the truth. The thief needed kindness. None of these teachers acted from a set of rigid rules. They acted from presence. They were so tuned into the moment that the perfect response arose naturally. This is what we mean by skillful means in Buddhism. For us, navigating our daily lives, this is a powerful lesson. Sometimes, being kind to ourselves means being gentle and taking a rest. Other times, being kind to ourselves means being firm and turning off the phone, or saying no to a bad habit. Tonight, ask yourself, what is the wise compassion you need right now? Do you need to forgive yourself for a mistake, like Ryokan would? Do you need to be honest about what's keeping you awake, like Eshen? Or do you need to burn down the hut of your busy thoughts so you can finally experience the reality of rest? Whatever form it takes, know that the intention is the same: to bring you back to wholeness, to bring you back to the moon at the window, to bring you back to peace. In the bustling port cities of Meiji-era Japan, where the salt air mixed with the shouts of stevedores, lived a man named Onami. His name meant great waves, a powerful title for a man of immense physical stature. Onami was a sumo wrestler, a giant of a man with muscles like knotted ropes and the balance of a dancer. In the practice ring, away from prying eyes, Onami was invincible. He moved with the force of a tsunami, throwing even his own teachers with effortless grace. He was a master of technique, a prodigy of strength, but Onami had a secret shame, a weakness that threatened to destroy his career and his livelihood. The moment he stepped into the public ring, the dohyo, and saw the crowds of spectators, his courage evaporated. The sea of faces, the noise, the judgment, it terrified him. His knees would knock together, his breath would become shallow and ragged, his stomach would twist into knots. The man named Great Waves would become a puddle of shallow water. In public matches, he was easily defeated by wrestlers half his skill. Desperate and on the verge of quitting, Onami sought out a wandering Zen master who had stopped at a small temple nearby. "Master," Onami pleaded, his massive frame hunched in defeat, "I am a coward. My name is Great Waves, but in front of a crowd, I am nothing. Please, help me." The master looked at the wrestler. He saw the fear, but he also saw the potential buried beneath it. "Your name is Great Waves," the master said firmly. "Tonight, stay here, in this temple. Sit in the meditation hall. Imagine that you are those waves. You are no longer a wrestler who is afraid. You are the immense billows of the ocean, sweeping everything before them, swallowing all ships, all obstacles, all fear. Do this completely, and you will be the greatest wrestler in the land." The master left Onami alone in the dark hall. Onami sat down. He closed his eyes. At first, his mind was filled with the usual chatter, the memories of past defeats, the worries about money. But he returned to the master's instruction. "I am waves. I am waves." Slowly, the visualization began to take hold. He felt a rhythm in his breath, rising and falling like the tide. He felt the floor beneath him not as wood, but as the ocean bed. As the night deepened, the feeling grew intense. In his mind's eye, the water rose. It washed away the flowers on the altar. It crashed over the stone Buddha. It flooded the temple, carrying away the pillars, the roof, and finally, the small, fearful self named Onami. There was no longer an I who was afraid. There was only the surging, unstoppable power of the ocean. The fear didn't disappear. It drowned in the vastness of his true nature. By dawn, the temple was filled with the silence of the aftermath of a storm. The master returned to find Onami sitting with a faint smile, an aura of immense calm radiating from him. "Now, nothing can disturb you," the master whispered. "You are those waves." That day, Onami entered the tournament. He stepped into the ring, and the crowd's noise sounded like the distant murmur of seagulls. He didn't see opponents, he saw floating debris. He moved with the inevitability of the tide. He won every match. He swept everyone aside. From that day on, no one could defeat him. This story teaches us the power of mindfulness meditation combined with visualization. Onami's fear came from thinking he was small and separate. His power came from realizing he was vast and connected. Tonight, if anxiety feels like a crowd watching you, change the image. You are not the small boat tossed by the storm. You are the ocean itself. Deep, dark, and endless. Let the waves of your breath wash away the debris of the day. In the depths of the ocean, there is no noise, only silence. During the late Tokugawa period, before the electric lights of the modern world banished the shadows, stories were told by candlelight stories of masters who lived with one foot in this world and one in the infinite. One such master was Hoshin. Hoshin had spent many years in China absorbing the Dharma before returning to teach in the snowy northern provinces of Japan. He was a man of few words, but his presence was like a sturdy mountain pine. As he grew old, his students began to dread the day he would leave them. One winter day, as snow piled up against the temple walls, Hoshin gathered his disciples. "I want to tell you a story," he began, his eyes twinkling. "Many years ago in China," Hoshin said, "there was a master named Tokufu. On December 25th, he told his students, 'I will not be alive next year.' His students thought he was joking, for he was healthy as an ox, but they treated him kindly anyway. On New Year's Eve, he said, 'You have been good to me. I will leave tomorrow afternoon when the snow stops.' The students laughed. It was a clear night, but at midnight, snow began to fall. By noon the next day, the snow stopped. The students went to find their teacher and found him sitting in meditation, having passed away precisely as he predicted. Hoshin paused and looked at his students, whose faces were pale. "Master," one student asked, trembling, "is it really possible for a Zen man to know the time of his death?" "It is not necessary," Hoshin replied casually. "But if one truly wishes to show this freedom, it can be done. Can you do it?" The student challenged, half in hope, half in fear. "Yes," Hoshin said, "I will show you what I mean. 7 days from now, I will join my teacher, Tokufu." The students were stunned. Was this a joke? A test? Hoshin seemed perfectly fine. He ate his meals, joked with the cook, and sat in meditation as always. The days ticked by. 1, 2, 3. By the 6th day, many had forgotten the prediction, dismissing it as an old man's eccentricity. On the 7th day, after the midday meal, Hoshin called everyone to the main hall. He sat on his cushion, straightened his robes, and looked around the room with immense clarity. 7 days ago, he said, his voice steady, "I said I would be leaving you. It is customary for a master to write a death poem, but I am not a poet, and my calligraphy is poor. Will one of you please write my final words for me?" The room went silent. The reality of the moment crashed down on them. One student, tears welling in his eyes, picked up a brush and paper. "Are you ready?" Hoshin asked. "Yes, master." Hoshin closed his eyes and spoke. "I came from brilliancy and returned to brilliancy. What is this?" The student wrote the characters quickly. Then he paused. "Master," he said hesitantly, "traditional death poems have 4 lines. This is only 3. Hoshin opened his eyes. He looked at the student, and suddenly, with the roar of a conquering lion, he shouted, "Kaa! What is this?" And in that instant, with the shout still ringing in the rafters, Hoshin was gone. He sat there, lifeless, yet more alive than ever. This story is not just about death. It is about the ultimate freedom of life. Hoshin showed that we are not victims of our fate. He treated death not as a tragedy, but as another scheduled appointment, one he could meet with punctuality and humor. His final line, that roar of Kaa, was the answer to, "What is this?" It was a direct pointing to the mystery of existence that cannot be captured in words. He refused to be boxed in by the rules of poetry, just as he refused to be boxed in by the fear of death. He came from brilliancy, the light of pure awareness. He returned to brilliancy, and in between, just a flash of lightning, a shout, a brief, beautiful dance. What connects the sumo wrestler who became the ocean and the master who roared at death? It is a shift in identity. Onami suffered because he thought he was a nervous man named Onami. When he realized he was the great waves, the fear vanished. Hoshin's students suffered because they thought they were losing a person. Hoshin knew he was brilliancy, returning to brilliancy. So there was no loss, only a return home. This is the core of Zen meditation. It asks us the most important question of all. Who are you? Are you the anxious thoughts in your head? Are you the body that feels tired or achy? Are you the job title, the name, the history, or are you something bigger? Are you the spacious awareness that notices the anxiety? Are you the silent witness that observes the body? Tonight, as you lay here, you can practice this expansion. When a thought comes, say, "I am not this thought. I am the space in which it appears." When a feeling comes, say, "I am not this feeling. I am the ocean that holds this wave." You are not the small, separate self that needs to fight for sleep. You are the vast, dark, peaceful sky. The clouds of thought may drift through you, but they cannot touch you. They cannot harm you. And eventually, they will dissolve back into the blue. I came from brilliancy, and I return to brilliancy. Let this be your mantra tonight. You are returning to the brilliance of deep rest. You are returning to the source. In the ancient capital of Kyoto, where the Kamo River flows past willow trees and wooden machiya houses, there lived a woman whose life was a testament to the terrible beauty of human passion. Her name was Suzu, Little Bell, but history remembers her as Shunkai, Spring Ocean. Born in the late 19th century, Shunkai was cursed with gifts that the world was not ready to accept in a woman. She possessed a beauty so breathtaking that men would stop in the streets to stare, and an intellect so sharp it frightened her teachers. In a time when women were expected to be silent shadows, Shunkai burned like a noon Sunday. She was forced into an arranged marriage, but her spirit could not be tamed. After the marriage collapsed, she did the unthinkable. She enrolled in the university to study philosophy. She was brilliant, outshining the male students, but her beauty became a trap. Wherever she went, infatuation followed. Professors, classmates, strangers, they all fell in love with her, and Shunkai, with her passionate heart, often fell in love back. Seeking something deeper than the turbulence of romance, she turned to Zen. She sought refuge at a sub-temple of the great Tofukuji monastery. There, she found a community of monks who seemed to see past her face to her soul. She dedicated herself to the Dharma, and for a time, she found peace. But the world is cruel to those who shine too brightly. The wife of the head priest, consumed by jealousy over Shunkai's beauty and spiritual progress, began to spread poison. She whispered rumors that Shunkai was seducing the monks, that she was a demoness sent to corrupt the temple. The rumors grew until they reached the ears of the abbot. Without a proper investigation, to save the temple's reputation, he expelled Shunkai and her teacher. The injustice shattered her. She had given everything to the path, and she was cast out for a sin she didn't commit. The pain turned to a cold, hard rage. If the world will treat me as a villain, she thought, then I will give them a villain. That night, driven by the madness of heartbreak, Shunkai took a can of kerosene. She walked to the ancient temple that had rejected her, the wooden structure that had stood for centuries, and struck a match. The flames consumed the temple. It burned to the ground. Shunkai was arrested. She refused a lawyer. "Do not save me," she told the young attorney, who tried to help. "I have burned my bridges. Let me burn." She spent 7 hard years in prison. Even there, the warden fell in love with her. When she was finally released, she was a pariah. Her family disowned her. Her friends crossed the street to avoid the arsonist nun. She was alone, impoverished, and physically broken by tuberculosis. It was in this utter darkness, when all her talent, beauty, and intellect had failed her, that she finally found the light. She met a priest of the Pure Land school who spoke not of self-power and rigorous Zen discipline, but of Amida Buddha, the Buddha of infinite light, who accepts everyone, even the broken, even the sinners. Shunkai realized that her whole life had been a struggle of the ego, trying to be smart, trying to be special, trying to be right. In her final days, lying on a thin futon in a small room, she let go. She stopped fighting. She chanted the Nembutsu, Namu Amida Butsu. I take refuge in the infinite. She wrote her story down as a warning and a confession. When she died, still beautiful in her pale silence, the very people who had shunned her wept over her words. Shunkai's story is a tragedy, but it is also a Buddhist story of ultimate redemption. It teaches us that sometimes we have to be completely broken before we can be whole. Her suffering came from attachment to justice, to love, to being understood. When she finally let go of how she thought her life should be, she found the peace of how it was. She found that the spring ocean of compassion is deep enough to swallow even the terrible fire of the past. Let us move from the heaviness of tragedy to the lightness of laughter. For Zen is found as much in a joke as in a tear. In the Meiji era, 2 friends represented opposite ends of the Buddhist spectrum. Unsho was a Shingon priest, a man of rules. He kept every precept perfectly. He never ate after noon, never touched money, and certainly never let a drop of alcohol pass his lips. He was stiff, proper, and very proud of his purity. Tanzan, on the other hand, was a professor of philosophy at the Imperial University and a Zen master who didn't look like one. He wore casual clothes, ate when he was hungry, and lived with a freedom that shocked the orthodox. One day, Unsho went to visit his old friend Tanzan. He found the Zen master sitting on his veranda, enjoying the cool breeze and sipping from a cup of sake. "Hello, brother," Tanzan called out cheerfully, his face slightly flushed. "Come, sit down, have a drink with me." Unsho stiffened. He looked at the cup with disdain. "I do not drink," he declared icily. "It is against the precepts of the Buddha. I am a monk." Tanzan smiled, his eyes crinkling with mischief. "Oh, come now," he teased. "Just a sip. It will warm your spirit." "Never," Unsho snapped. "I do not put poison in my body." Tanzan sighed and looked at his friend. My, he said gently. "Someone who does not drink is not even human." Unsho was outraged. His face turned purple. "What did you say?" he demanded. "Are you calling me inhuman because I follow the Buddha's laws? Because I have the discipline to abstain from intoxicants? If I am not human, then what am I?" Tanzan took a calm sip of his wine and looked Unsho in the eye. "A Buddha," Tanzan replied. Unsho froze. He had expected an insult. Instead, He received the highest compliment possible. His anger hung in the air, with nowhere to go. "Ah," Unsho stammered. His ego suddenly stroked. "Well, if you put it that way." Tanzan laughed, a great belly laugh that shook the veranda. "Exactly," he exclaimed. "You are a Buddha, but look at you, so stiff, so angry, so attached to your rules that you cannot even share a moment of friendship. Being a Buddha is wonderful, my friend, but sometimes it is nice to just be a human being." This delightful exchange reveals the trap of spiritual materialism. Unsho was so attached to the idea of being a good monk that he missed the point of the practice, which is connection and freedom. He was drunk on his own righteousness, which is far more intoxicating than wine. Tanzan, who broke the rules, kept the spirit. He showed that true Zen stories aren't about becoming a statue of perfection. They are about being fluid, about knowing when to hold the precepts and when to open your heart. Tonight, maybe you are being like Unsho with your sleep. Maybe you have rigid rules. I must sleep 8 hours. I must not wake up. I must be perfect tomorrow. These rules create tension. Be like Tanzan. Have a sip of the wine of relaxation. If you are awake, be awake. If you sleep, sleep. Don't try to be a Buddha of sleep. Just be a human being resting. In a quiet village, nestled among the rice paddies, there lived a monk named Shoun. He was a man of deep contradictions in the eyes of the world, but of singular purpose in the eyes of the heart. When Shoun was young, his father died, leaving his elderly mother alone. In traditional Japan, a monk was expected to leave his family behind, to sever all worldly ties and live in a monastery. But Shoun looked at his frail mother and knew he could not abandon her. So, he made a choice that caused whispers throughout the Buddhist community. He did not enter a monastery. Instead, he built a small house and lived there with his mother. He gave Dharma talks and taught meditation, but he lived like a layman. To support her, he spent his nights copying sutras by candlelight, his beautiful calligraphy earning just enough for food. But his mother, weak and old, needed more than rice. She craved fish, which was strictly forbidden for monks to buy or handle. Shoun did not hesitate. He went to the market in his robes, bought the fresh fish, and cooked it for his mother. The other monks sneered at him. "Look at Shoun," they gossiped. "He calls himself a teacher, yet he stinks of fish. He has no discipline." Shoun heard the whispers, but he walked past them with his head high. His discipline was love. His mother, however, felt the weight of the judgment. She saw the way people looked at her son. "My dear," she said one day, tears in her eyes, "I am a burden to your spiritual reputation. I should become a nun. Then I can eat vegetarian food, and no one will criticize you." And so she did. They shaved her head, and she put on robes. Mother and son, monk and nun, living together in a tiny hut. They were happy. They were both musicians. Shoan played the flute, and his mother played the koto. On nights when the moon was full, they would play duets. The hauntingly beautiful music would drift over the village, silencing the critics and turning the gossip into wonder. One night, a young woman from the pleasure district passed by and heard the music. Enchanted, she invited Shoun to come play at her tea house. He accepted. Again, the tongues wagged. Now he is visiting geishas, but Shoan saw only a person who loved music. He played for her, bowed, and left. He was like a lotus flower, rooted in the mud of the world, yet unstained by it. Years later, when his mother finally passed away, Shoan was away teaching in a distant province. He rushed back, arriving just as the funeral procession was starting. He walked up to the coffin, dusty and tired. He didn't chant a sutra. He didn't light incense. He knocked on the wooden lid with his staff. "Tack, tack, tack. Mother," he called out, "your son has returned." Then, Answering for her in a high, quavering voice, he said, "Ah, Shone, I am glad you are back. Have you eaten?" "Yes, mother, I am fine," he replied in his own voice. He turned to the stunned mourners. "The ceremony is over," he announced. "You may bury her now." It was the most honest funeral anyone had ever seen. No pretense, just the raw, beautiful connection of two souls. Shone showed us that, sometimes, to follow the true path, you must leave the beaten trail. He broke the small rules to keep the big one. Compassion. He understood that Buddhist stories are not about being perfect in the eyes of others, but about being true to the love in your own heart. We have traveled through 3 very different lives. Shunkai, who burned a temple out of pain, Tanzan, who drank wine out of freedom, and Shone, who bought fish out of love. What do these stories tell us about the delicate dance between attachment and freedom? Often, we think attachment is bad. We are told to let go, to be detached, to not care. But these stories suggest something more nuanced. Shunkai suffered because she was attached to an outcome she wanted justice. But her liberation came not from becoming unfeeling, but from shifting her attachment to something larger, the infinite compassion of Amida. Unsho was attached to his rules, and it made him rigid. Tanzan was free because he understood the spirit of the rules. Shone was deeply attached to his mother, yet that attachment was the very vehicle of his enlightenment. It forced him to be humble, to serve, to ignore the ego of reputation. The Buddha taught the middle way. This is not a lukewarm compromise. It is a dynamic balance. It is the ability to hold something precious in your hands, a relationship, a dream, a moment of sleep, without crushing it. Think of holding a butterfly. If you grasp too tightly, you kill it. If you open your hand completely, it flies away. You must cup your hands gently. You must create a space where the butterfly can rest, but is not imprisoned. Tonight, practice this middle way with your sleep. Do not grasp at sleep, demanding it come right now. That is Shunkai's anger. Do not push sleep away, or try to force yourself to stay awake. That is Unsho's rigidity. Instead, be like Shone. Treat your body like the beloved mother. Care for it. Listen to it. Offer it the nourishment of rest, without worrying about what the rules say you should be doing. Hold this moment gently. Not too tight, not too loose, just right. In the late Edo period, Japan was a fortress. The shoguns had locked the country down, banning foreign travel and foreign religions. Christianity was strictly forbidden, punishable by death. Yet, truth has a way of seeping through even the tightest borders, like water through stone. In this era lived a Zen master named Gassen. He was a man of immense curiosity, a teacher who believed that wisdom had no flag and no country. He taught at a monastery where the winter winds howled from the north, but his mind remained forever warm and open. One day, a university student who had been secretly studying Western culture came to the monastery. He carried a dangerous object wrapped in dark cloth, a copy of the Christian Bible. He had heard that Gassen was unlike other priests, that he was a man who sought truth above dogma. "Master," the student whispered, glancing around to ensure they were alone. "Have you ever read the Christian holy book?" "No," Gassen replied, his eyes lighting up with interest. "I cannot read that language, but you can. Read it to me." The student sat by the hearth and opened the forbidden book. He chose the Gospel of Matthew, the Sermon on the Mount. His voice trembled slightly as he read words that could get them both killed. "And why take ye thought for raiment? Consider the lilies of the field, how they grow. They toil not, neither do they spin. And yet I say unto you, that even Solomon in all his glory was not arrayed like one of these." Gassen closed his eyes, listening intently. He envisioned the lilies, growing effortlessly in the field, trusting the earth and the rain. "Stop," Gassen said. "That is beautiful. Whoever uttered those words, I consider an enlightened man. He understands the way of no effort. The student continued reading. Ask, and it shall be given you. Seek, and ye shall find. Knock, and it shall be opened unto you. Ghassan nodded vigorously. Excellent, he exclaimed. That is exactly it. The door of truth is never locked. We only think it is. Whoever said that is not far from Buddhahood. This remarkable exchange shows us the true nature of the awakened mind. Ghassan didn't care that the book was Christian or forbidden. He didn't reject it because it didn't use Buddhist terminology. He tasted the flavor of the words and recognized the taste of truth, like a bee that finds nectar in any flower. Whether it is a lotus or a rose, the wise mind finds wisdom everywhere. It practices spiritual discrimination, separating the truth from the packaging. We often box ourselves in. I am this. I believe that. This is the only way. But Ghassan invites us to tear down the walls. Wisdom is wisdom. Peace is peace. Whether it comes from a Zen meditation, a prayer, a walk in the woods, or a story like this one. Tonight, let go of the labels. You don't need to be a good Buddhist or a good anything to find rest. You just need to be like the lily of the field. It doesn't toil. It doesn't spin. It doesn't worry about tomorrow. It simply rests in the soil of the present moment and allows life to unfold. The Buddha himself, nearly 2,500 years ago, told a parable that captures the human condition more perfectly than any philosophy book. It is a story of terror, and yet it is a story of ultimate sweetness. A man was traveling across a vast, open field. Suddenly, he heard a roar that shook the ground. Behind him, a ferocious tiger charged from the tall grass, its eyes burning with hunger. The man ran. He ran with his heart hammering against his ribs, the tiger's breath hot on his heels. He came to the edge of a steep cliff. Trapped, with no other choice, he grabbed a thick wild vine that dangled over the edge and swung himself over. He hung there, suspended in the air. Above him, the tiger snarled, pacing the cliff edge. The man looked down. Far below, at the bottom of the canyon, another tiger waited. Looking up, licking its chops, he was stuck. Death above, death below. As he hung there, clinging to the vine for dear life, he noticed something moving near his hands. 2 mice, one white and one black, had scurried out of a hole in the cliff. They began to gnaw on the vine. Scritch, scratch, scritch, scratch. The white mouse represented the day. The black mouse represented the night. Day and night, time itself, was slowly eating away his lifeline. The man hung there. His arms ached. The tigers waited. The mice chewed. His situation was hopeless. It was the definition of anxiety. But then, right in front of his face, growing from a crack in the rocky cliff, he saw a small wild strawberry plant, and dangling from it was a single, perfect, red strawberry. The man looked at the tigers. He looked at the mice. He looked at the strawberry. Holding the vine with one hand, he reached out with the other and plucked the berry. He popped it into his mouth. He closed his eyes. The juice burst on his tongue. How sweet it tasted. He whispered, "This story is not about escaping danger. It is about where we place our attention. We are all that man. The tiger above is our past, our regrets, our mistakes. The tiger below is our future, our fears, death, the unknown. The mice are the passing of time, stealing our moments one by one. Most of us spend our lives staring at the tigers or screaming at the mice. We are paralyzed by what might happen. We miss the actual experience of being alive. But the Buddha says, look closer. Right here, hanging over the abyss, there is a strawberry. There is the softness of your pillow, the warmth of your blanket, the gentle rhythm of your breath. The sweetness of the strawberry didn't make the tigers go away. But for that moment, The man was free. He was fully alive. He chose to taste the gift of the present, rather than be consumed by the fear of the future. Tonight, you are safe in your bed, but your mind may be running from tigers. Stop running. Reach out. Taste the strawberry of this moment. It is sweet, and it is yours. In the artistic circles of Kyoto, the master calligrapher Kosen was a legend. His brush danced on the paper like a living thing, creating characters that seemed to breathe. He understood that true art comes from mushin no mind, a state where the artist and the art become one. Kosen was commissioned to carve the large wooden characters for the gate of the famous Obaku temple. The phrase was, "the first principle." It was a sacred task. He began his work with great reverence. However, he had a student attending him, a young man who was helpful but also highly opinionated. This student had convinced himself that he had a critical eye for perfection. Kosen dipped his brush, took a breath, and wrote the characters. He looked at them, satisfied. "Not good," the student said from behind him, shaking his head. "It lacks power." Kosen, being a patient teacher, accepted the critique. "Perhaps you are right," he thought. "I was distracted." He took a fresh sheet of paper. He focused harder. He tried to make the strokes perfect. He wrote again. "Better," the student judged, "but still not excellent. The balance is off." Kosen began to sweat. The criticism was seeping into his mind. He started thinking about his hand, about the ink, about the student watching him. He wrote a third time, a fourth, a 10th. No, too stiff, too loose, not spiritual enough. The floor became littered with crumpled paper. 84 sheets of the first principle lay in a heap. Kosen was exhausted. His mind was tight, knotted with the effort to please, to be perfect, to avoid judgment. The more he tried, the worse his writing became. He was no longer writing from his soul. He was writing from his fear. Finally, the student stood up. "I need to go to the outhouse," he announced. "I will be back in a few minutes." The moment the door slid shut, Kosen felt a massive weight lift from his shoulders. The judge was gone. The critic had left the building. Kosen smiled. He didn't think. He didn't prepare. He didn't try. With a mind as clear as a cloudless sky, he grabbed the brush and splashed the ink onto the paper. Swish, swish, swish. The first principle. It was done in seconds. The characters flowed with a wild, natural beauty. They were alive. They were perfect. When the student returned, he stared at the paper, his mouth open. "A masterpiece," he exclaimed. "How did you do it?" Kosen laughed. He had done it by not doing it. This story exposes the enemy of sleep and peace, the inner critic. That voice that watches you, judges you, tells you, "You're not doing it right. You should be asleep by now. You messed up today." When Kosen tried to please the critic, he failed. When he ignored the critic and just let his natural ability flow, he succeeded. You have an inner artist of sleep. Your body knows how to sleep. It has done it thousands of times. But your inner student, your conscious mind, is standing there watching, judging. Is this sleep yet? Am I relaxing enough? Send the student out of the room. Tell your critical mind, it can take a break. When the watcher leaves, the natural rhythm returns. You don't do sleep. You allow it to happen when you stop trying to do it perfectly. We have just journeyed through 3 landscapes of the mind: the dangerous cliff with the strawberry, the calligraphy studio of Kosen, and the monastery where a Christian Bible was read. Though they seem different, they all whisper the same secret. What is the nature of a mind at peace? It is not a mind that denies danger, for the tigers were real. It is not a mind that tries to be perfect, for Kosen failed when he tried. It is not a mind that excludes the unfamiliar, for the master found truth even in a foreign book. The nature of the awakened mind is spaciousness. It is the capacity to hold it all, the fear and the sweetness, the effort and the flow, the known and the unknown. When Kosen, the calligrapher, finally succeeded, it wasn't because he learned a new technique. It was because he returned to his original mind, the mind before fear, before judgment, before the need to be special. This is the mind you were born with. It is the mind that knows how to sleep without reading a manual on how to do it. The Buddha's parable of the strawberry teaches us that joy is not something we find after we solve our problems. It is something we find in the midst of them. The sweetness of the berry didn't save the man's life, but it saved his moment. And since life is only a series of moments, it saved everything. Tonight, you don't need to chase away the tigers of your past or future to find rest. You just need to find the strawberry. It might be the softness of your mattress. It might be the silence in the room. Focus on that simple, immediate sensation. Allow your original mind to take over the mind that doesn't overthink, doesn't judge, and doesn't try. It simply is. And in that being, there is peace. In the snowy northern provinces, where winter nights are long and silence is a constant companion, there was a small temple run by two brothers. The elder brother was learned and scholarly, while the younger brother was simple-minded and had lost one eye in a childhood accident. He was known simply as the guardian monk. One day, a traveling scholar arrived at the temple gate. In those days, it was custom that a visiting monk could challenge the residents to a Dharma debate. If the visitor won, he could stay the night. If he lost, he had to move on. The elder brother was exhausted from his studies, so he told the younger one, "You go and take the challenge. But remember, do it in silence. Don't let him know you are simple. Use gestures." The guardian monk agreed and sat in the shrine hall to wait. The scholar entered, and the silent debate began. A few minutes later, the scholar rushed out to the elder brother, looking shaken and humbled. "Your brother is a master," the scholar exclaimed. "He has defeated me completely. I must leave." "Wait," said the elder brother, confused. "What happened?" "Well," explained the scholar, "I started by holding up one finger, representing the Buddha, the enlightened one. Your brother immediately held up two fingers, signifying the Buddha and his teaching. I was impressed. Then, the scholar continued, I held up three fingers, representing the Buddha, the teaching, and the community. And then, your brother shook his clenched fist in my face. He was indicating that all three come from a single, unified realization. His understanding is far beyond mine. I am not worthy to stay. With that, the scholar bowed and fled into the snow. Moments later, the guardian monk stomped into the room, furious. "Where is that rude fellow?" he shouted. "I want to punch him." "Punch him?" asked the elder brother. "He said you won the debate. What happened?" "That man was insulting me," the younger monk cried. "First, he held up one finger, making fun of me because I have only one eye. I tried to be polite. So I held up two fingers to congratulate him on having two eyes. Then he fumed. That ungrateful wretch held up three fingers, pointing out that between the two of us, we only have three eyes. I got so mad I showed him my fist to threaten him, but he ran away." This story, filled with the comedy of errors, holds a deep mirror to our own minds. The scholar was trapped in his intellect, seeing profound symbols where there were none. The guardian monk was trapped in his insecurity, seeing insults where there were none. Neither saw reality. We do this every night. We interpret the events of the day through the lens of our own conditioning. A glance from a coworker becomes a judgment. A silence from a partner becomes rejection. We spin elaborate stories that have nothing to do with what actually happened. True rest comes when we drop the interpretations, when one finger is just a finger, when a sound is just a sound, when the night is just the night, stripped of the stories we tell ourselves about it. In the bustling market of Edo, amidst the shouts of fishmongers and the clatter of wooden cartwheels, a moment of spiritual awakening occurred in the most unlikely of places. Master Cezanne was walking through the market, shopping for the temple kitchen. He was a serious man, searching for the ultimate truth, always looking for the best way to practice, the best way to live. He stopped at a butcher shop. A wealthy customer was standing there, pointing at the slabs of meat. "Give me the best piece of meat you have," the customer demanded loudly. "I don't want any of the inferior cuts." The butcher, a man with rough hands and a blood-stained apron, stopped his knife work. He looked at the customer with a twinkle in his eye and shouted back, "Everything in my shop is the best. You cannot find a piece of meat here that is not the best." At these words, Master Cezanne froze. The noise of the market faded away. Everything is the best. For years, Cezanne had been dividing his life into good and bad, holy and profane, meditation and distraction. He was constantly rejecting the present moment in favor of some imagined better moment in the future. But the butcher's words cut through his delusion like a cleaver. Every piece of meat was the best because it was what it was. A rib is a perfect rib. A loin is a perfect loin. To compare them is a human invention. In that instant, Cezanne realized that life itself is always the best. The rainy day is the best rainy day. The headache is the best headache. The moment of sleeplessness is the best moment of sleeplessness, because it is the only reality existing right now. When we stop labeling our experience as wrong or inferior, we stop fighting it. We realize that this moment, right here, with all its imperfections, is the only place where life is happening. Tonight, don't ask for a better sleep. Accept the rest you are getting. It is the best rest for this moment. When you stop shopping for a different reality, you can finally relax into the one you have. In the countryside, where traditions ran deep, there was a teacher named Kaido. He was practical and earthy, preferring direct demonstration over long lectures. One of his lay students came to him in distress. "Teacher," the man complained, "my wife is impossible. She is so stingy. She hoards our money, refuses to give to the poor, and counts every grain of rice. It is shameful. I cannot live with her greed." Kaido nodded. "I will visit her." The next day, Kaido knocked on the couple's door. When the wife answered, looking suspicious of this unexpected guest, Kaido didn't say a customary greeting. Instead, he thrust his clenched fist right in her face. He held it there, tight and rigid, knuckles white. "What are you doing?" the woman asked, startled. "If my hand were always like this," Kaido asked, "what would you call it?" "I would call it deformed," she replied honestly. Then, Kaido opened his hand completely flat, stretching his fingers back as far as they could go, palm exposed. "And if it were always like this?" he asked. "Never able to close?" "That would be another kind of deformity," the woman said, intrigued. "Exactly," Kaido smiled, lowering his hand. "If you understand that, you are a wise woman. A hand that only grasps is deformed. A hand that only lets go is deformed. To be a healthy human hand, it must be able to open and close." He bowed and left. The teaching struck the woman harder than any sermon on generosity. She realized that her hoarding was a deformity of the spirit, but her husband also learned that giving away everything without prudence would be another kind of imbalance. This story speaks to the rhythm of our lives. We breathe in, we breathe out, we wake, we sleep, we hold on, we let go. Insomnia is often a kind of clenched fist of the mind. We are holding on too tight to the day, to control, to our thoughts. We have forgotten how to open the hand and let the day drop, but we cannot force the hand open, or it becomes another tension. We must simply recognize the tension. Tonight, imagine your mind is that fist. Gently, slowly, allow the fingers of your thoughts to uncurl. You don't need to grasp anything until morning. Let the hand of your mind lie open, flat and relaxed, receiving the gift of sleep. The butcher shouting about his meat, the silent debate of gestures, the master's clenched fist, These stories illustrate a unique quality of Zen called direct pointing. Words are often slippery. We can hide behind them, we can debate them, but an action, a gesture, a direct experience that hits us in the gut. It bypasses the thinking mind and speaks directly to our intuition. When the guardian monk showed his fist, or Kaido showed his hand, they weren't explaining the truth, they were demonstrating it. In your own search for peace and sleep, you might have read countless books, listened to podcasts, or memorized techniques. You have filled your head with words about sleep, but sleep is not a word. It is a direct experience. The wisdom of these masters invites you to move from the library of your mind to the living room of your body. Don't think about relaxation. Feel the weight of your shoulders dropping. Don't analyze your breath. Be the sensation of the air entering your nose. Direct pointing means coming back to the raw data of the senses, the cool pillow, the soft darkness, the rhythm of the chest. When you drop the labels and the stories, what remains is the simple, undeniable reality of just this. And just this is always peaceful enough to rest in. We return now to the courageous Nun Mayo, the woman who once challenged a monk to embrace her in public. Her life was a blaze of truth, and her death was no different. When Mayo reached her 60s, she knew her time in this body was coming to an end. She did not have a terminal illness. She simply felt the turning of the seasons within her own bones. She decided she would not wait for death to come like a thief in the night. She would meet it at the front door. One crisp autumn afternoon, she instructed the monks to pile wood in the center of the courtyard. They were confused but obedient, stacking the logs high into a pyre. When it was finished, Mayo walked out, dressed in her ceremonial robes. She climbed onto the pyre and sat in the full lotus position. The air was silent, save for the cawing of a crow. "Light the fire," she commanded calmly. The monks hesitated. To burn a living person? It was unthinkable. But Mayo's gaze was iron. "Do as I say," she said. "This is my choice." With trembling hands, they lit the edges of the wood. The flames began to crackle and climb, licking at the hem of her robes. The heat rippled through the air. One of the monks, unable to bear the sight, cried out, "Master, is it hot in there?" Mayo opened her eyes. The fire was rising around her, but her face was as cool and serene as a moonlit lake. "Such a matter," she replied, her voice steady and amused, "would only concern a stupid person like yourself." And with those final words, dismissing the very concept of physical pain as a concern of the ego, she closed her eyes and departed. This story is intense, perhaps even frightening to our modern sensibilities. But look deeper. Nun Mayo was not committing suicide in despair. She was demonstrating ultimate liberation. She was showing that she was not her body. "Is it hot?" asks the mind that identifies with the flesh. Who is asking? Responds the spirit that identifies with the infinite. Mayo had realized that the I who suffers, the I who feels heat and cold, is just a small part of who we are. By stepping into the fire, she showed that the true self cannot be burned. Tonight, you are not facing a fire, but perhaps you are facing the heat of anxiety or the discomfort of a restless body. Remember, Nun Mayo, the part of you that observes the discomfort is not uncomfortable. The awareness that notices the heat is not hot. Step back into that witnessing awareness. From that place of safety, you can watch the sensations rise and fall like flames, without being consumed by them. In the transition between the old world and the new, there stood a bridge builder named Master Kogen. He was the first to carry the lamp of Zen across the ocean to the west. But before he was a global teacher, he was a man of rigorous self-discipline. Kogen understood that freedom is not the absence of structure, but the result of it. He lived by a code, a set of daily rules that grounded his Buddhist philosophy in the concrete reality of minutes and hours. Every morning, he would recite his code. In the morning before dressing, light incense and meditate. Eat with moderation and never to the point of satisfaction. Receive a guest with the same attitude you have when alone. When alone, maintain the same attitude you have in receiving guests. Watch what you say, and whatever you say, practice it. Do not regret the past. Look to the future. Have the fearless attitude of a hero and the loving heart of a child, and perhaps most profoundly, his rule for the end of the day. Upon retiring, sleep as if you had entered your last sleep. Upon awakening, leave your bed behind you instantly, as if you were casting away a pair of old shoes. These were not rules to restrict him, but to liberate him. Sleep as if you had entered your last sleep. What does this mean? It means to die to the day completely, to lay down your burdens, your identity, your history, as if you were never going to pick them up again. Most of us take our days to bed with us. We carry the arguments, the unfinished lists, the worries into the sheets. We try to sleep while holding on to the heavy luggage of me. Master Kogan teaches us to drop the luggage. The day is done. It is a finished life. Tonight is a little death, a sacred pause. If you treat sleep as a total release, a complete surrender, then waking up tomorrow becomes a rebirth. Leave your bed like old shoes. This means when you wake, don't drag the grogginess or the dreams with you. Step fresh into the new life. But for now, your task is the first part. Enter your last sleep. Say goodbye to the person you were today. You don't need him or her anymore. Let them dissolve. What remains is pure rest. In a village where the temple bell marked the hours, a local priest suffered a great loss. His wife, who had been his companion for 40 years, passed away. Heartbroken, the priest arranged for a special chanting service. He invited a senior monk to recite the Holy Sutras, believing that the spiritual merit generated would help guide his wife's soul to a better rebirth. After the ceremony, the priest sat with the monk, pouring tea with trembling hands. "Tell me, Reverend," the priest asked anxiously, "do you think my wife will gain merit from these sutras?" The monk nodded benevolently. "Not only your wife," he explained, "but all sentient beings will benefit from this recitation. The power of the Dharma is vast. It spreads like sunlight, touching everyone." The priest frowned. He put down his teacup. "But if the merit goes to everyone," he said, calculating, "then my wife's share might be very small, and she was a weak woman. If she has to share with everyone, others might take advantage of her and grab her merit. Can we recite the sutras again, but this time dedicate it just to her?" The monk smiled patiently. "In Buddhism, we do not hoard blessings. We dedicate the merit to all beings to dissolve the boundaries of the self. It is the vastness of the offering that helps your wife, not the exclusivity." "I see," the priest said, scratching his head. "That is a fine teaching, theoretically. But look, I have a neighbor named Tanaka. He is a rude, nasty man. He throws his garbage over my fence and insults me. I really don't want him to get any of my wife's merit. So, the priest proposed, can you include all sentient beings except Tanaka?" The monk laughed. "You cannot carve a hole in the sunlight," he said. We laugh at the priest, but are we so different? We want peace, but only for the parts of us we like. We want to relax, but we want to exclude the anxious thoughts, the body aches, the noisy neighbors. We say, "I want to sleep, but I don't want this feeling to be here." We try to bargain with our experience. "I will accept everything, except Tanaka." But true peace, like the merit of the sutras, is all-inclusive. You cannot selectively relax. You have to open the door to the whole catastrophe, the grief, the love, the neighbor, the noise. Paradoxically, when you include Tanaka, when you say, "Okay, anxiety, you can have some merit too," the resistance drops, the war ends, and when the war ends, sleep begins. The burning pyre of Nunmayo, the death rules of Master Kogan, the grieving priest bargaining for merit. All these stories circle around the great truth of impermanence, anicca. It is the one truth we spend our lives trying to ignore. Everything changes. Nothing stays. The day fades into night. The inhalation becomes the exhalation. The thought arises and vanishes. We suffer because we try to freeze the river. We want the happy moment to stay forever. We want the sad moment to never happen. We are like the priest trying to control who gets the merit. We are trying to manage the unmanageable flow of life. But these masters teach us a different way. They teach us to float. Non-Myo didn't fight the fire. She became the witness of it. Master Kogan didn't cling to the day. He cast it off like an old shoe. Understanding impermanence is not about being morbid or sad. It is the ultimate permission to relax. Because this moment is passing, you don't need to hold it up. Because your anxiety is impermanent, you don't need to solve it. You just need to wait it out. Because you are impermanent, you don't need to take yourself so seriously. Imagine you are standing by a river. Leaves are floating by. Some are beautiful red maple leaves, your happy thoughts. Some are gnarly brown twigs, your worries. Some are ugly trash, your fears. You don't need to jump in and save the red leaves. You don't need to jump in and fight the trash. You just stand on the bank and watch. There goes a happy thought. There goes a scary one. There goes the day. It is all moving. It is all leaving. And what remains is the riverbank, the silent, stable awareness that watches it all flow by. Tonight, be the bank, not the leaf. Deep in the sacred groves of ancient India, the Buddha's disciples practiced in the forest. Among them was the disciple Ananda. He was known not for his fiery debates or his strict discipline, but for his profound understanding of emptiness, sunyata. One afternoon, Ananda sat beneath a great sala tree. He was not meditating in the sense of trying to do something. He was simply sitting. He had dissolved his sense of self so completely that he was no different from the tree, the air, or the soil. There was no Ananda there. There was only the universe experiencing itself. Suddenly, the air began to shimmer. From the empty blue sky, flower petals began to fall. They were not earthly flowers. They glowed with a celestial light and carried a fragrance that smelled of pure joy. They drifted down, covering Ananda's robes, settling on his shoulders, carpeting the ground around him. Whispers of divine beings, the devas, floated on the breeze. We are praising you, Ananda, for your discourse on emptiness. Ananda opened his eyes, brushing a petal from his knee. He looked around in confusion. "But I have not spoken," he said aloud. "I have not uttered a single word about emptiness." The devas replied, their voices like wind chimes. "You have not spoken of emptiness, and we have not heard emptiness. This is true emptiness." And the flowers fell harder, a blizzard of soft, silent blessings. This story is a paradox. How can you give a lecture without speaking? Because true emptiness is not a concept. It is not a philosophy you talk about. It is a state of being. Ananda was praising emptiness by being empty. He had emptied himself of his ego, his opinions, his need to be someone. In that space, the universe rushed in to celebrate. We often think emptiness means nothingness, like a dark void. But in Buddhist stories, emptiness is alive. It is the pregnant pause before the music starts. It is the blank canvas waiting for the paint. It is the open sky that allows the clouds to dance. Tonight, you can practice this silent discourse. You don't need to pray with words. You don't need to affirm positive thoughts. Just empty yourself. Empty yourself of the day. Empty yourself of the name you call yourself. Empty yourself of the need to sleep. Be like Ananda under the tree. Just sit, just lie there. When you stop trying to fill the space, you might find that the universe begins to shower you with its own petals, the soft, silent flowers of peace. You have not spoken, and we have not heard. And in that silence, everything is accomplished. In the mountains of Japan, the path to spiritual awakening was often steep and rocky. No one knew this better than Nun Ryo. Ryo entered the convent when she was just a girl of 10. She possessed a spirit of steel wrapped in robes of silk. For 16 years, she traveled the country, seeking the greatest masters. She wanted to know the truth, and she wouldn't settle for half answers. She studied with Master Unan for 3 years, learning the scriptures. She studied with Master Gukoku for 6 years, mastering meditation. She was brilliant, disciplined, and dedicated, but she felt stuck. The final door, the door to total freedom, remained locked. Finally, she came to the iron-fisted Master Inzan. Inzan was not kind. He did not care that she was a woman or that she had traveled far. He treated her with the fierce roughness of a blacksmith pounding heated metal. "You are full of concepts," he would shout. "You stink of Zen. Get rid of it." For 13 years, Ryo stayed with Inzan. 13 years of scolding, of rejection, of hitting a wall. Morning and evening, she wrestled with the koans he gave her. It was like trying to swallow a hot iron ball that she could neither spit out nor digest. She was exhausted. She had spent 29 years seeking. She had given her youth, her beauty, her life to this search. And then, one ordinary morning, as she was watching the steam rise from a bowl of rice gruel, it happened. The bottom of her bucket fell out. The struggle simply stopped. She realized that what she had been looking for, this elusive enlightenment, was not something distant. It was the steam. It was the rice. It was the feeling of hunger. It was the very awareness that had been searching all along. Master Inzan, seeing her face that morning, smiled for the first time in 13 years. He wrote a poem for her. "This nun studied 13 years under my fist. In the evening, she wrestled with ghosts. In the morning, she fought with shadows. But now, she has surpassed them all. Since the ancient times, none has been so genuine as Ryo." Ryo's journey teaches us about the trap of seeking. We think peace is a destination, a place we will arrive at after we fix all our problems, after we finish our to-do list, after we get the perfect mattress. We work hard to get to sleep. But Ryo discovered that the seeking itself was the obstacle. She was like a person riding an ox, searching for the ox. You are already here. You are already aware. The peace you want is the awareness that is reading these words. It's not at the end of the journey. It is the journey. Stop wrestling with the ghosts of the evening. Stop fighting the shadows of the morning. Look at the steam rising from the rice. Look at the darkness behind your eyelids. It is already there. Genuine. Complete. Yours. There was once an old sage named Master Zhaozhou, who lived to be 120 years old. He was like an old gnarled tree, ancient, weathered, but full of life. His words were few, but they cut like diamonds. One day, a sincere student came to him. The student had been practicing hard. He had let go of his worldly possessions. He had let go of his ambition. He had let go of his ego. He felt very light and very proud of his lightness. "Master," the student said, bowing deeply, "I have cleared my mind. I have nothing left. I haven't a single thing in my mind. What shall I do now?" He expected praise. He expected Zhaozhou to say, "Wonderful, you have attained the highest state." Instead, Zhaozhou looked at him and said, "Throw it out." The student was confused. "But master," he protested, "I just told you I don't have anything. If I have nothing, how can I throw it out?" Zhaozhou nodded. "Well then," he said, "carry it out." The student was stunned. Then he laughed. He understood. He was carrying his nothing. He was holding on to his emptiness like a trophy. He was attached to the idea of being unattached. "I have nothing" is a very heavy thought. It is a something. This is a trap we fall into when we try to sleep. We try to clear the mind. We say, "Okay, I'm not thinking about work. I'm not thinking about money. Look how empty my mind is. But who is looking? The ego is looking. We are holding on to the state of relaxation, monitoring it, checking it. Am I relaxed yet? Is my mind empty yet? Zhao says, throw that out too. Throw out the idea that you need to have a clear mind. Throw out the idea that you need to be spiritual. If you can't throw it out, if the thoughts are still there, then carry it out. Which means, okay, the thoughts are there, fine, let them be there. Don't make a problem out of them. To carry it out means to wear your thoughts loosely, like a light garment, rather than carrying them like a heavy stone. Whether you have something or nothing, it doesn't matter. Just don't cling to it. The flowers falling on the silent Ananda, the nun, Rio, finding truth in her rice bowl, the old sage Zhao telling his student to drop his emptiness. These stories are maps that lead us back to the same place, the perfection of what is. We spend so much energy trying to fix ourselves. We try to fix our anxiety with mindfulness, meditation. We try to fix our insomnia with routines. We treat ourselves like broken machines that need repair. But these masters are telling you, you are not broken. The silence is already inside you, Ananda. The truth is already in your ordinary life, Rio. The emptiness is not a state you achieve. It's what you are, Zhao. This is the radical message of Zen. You are already complete. Right now, lying in this bed, with your busy mind, with your tired body, with your imperfections, you are the Buddha. You are the universe experiencing this moment. You don't need to become better to deserve rest. You don't need to be enlightened to find peace. You just need to stop arguing with the moment. Imagine you are a mirror. A mirror reflects beautiful flowers, Ananda. It reflects a struggling nun, Rio. It reflects a confused student, Zhao. The mirror doesn't judge the reflection. It doesn't say, I hope I reflect something better tomorrow. It just reflects. And because it holds on to nothing, it remains pure. Tonight, be the mirror. Whatever thoughts come, anxiety, planning, memories, let them pass across the surface. Do not push them away. Do not hold on to them. Just reflect them. You are the space in which they happen, and that space is always asleep, always at peace, always free. In the shadow of the Edo castle, a merchant lived a life haunted by a promise. He had deeply loved his first wife. On her deathbed, consumed by the fear of being forgotten, she grabbed his hand and made him swear an oath. Promise me, she rasped, her eyes burning with fever, that you will never marry again. If you love another woman, I will return as a ghost. I will haunt you every night. I will tear your happiness apart. Terrified and grieving, the merchant promised. For 3 months, he lived alone. But life flows on, and eventually, he met a woman whose gentle spirit healed his heart. They fell in love. He decided to marry her, telling himself that the dead do not return. He was wrong. On the night of his engagement, the ghost of his first wife appeared in his bedroom. She was translucent, shimmering with a cold, pale light. Her face was twisted in betrayal. You broke your promise, she hissed. I warned you. From that night on, she tormented him. She knew everything. You gave her a blue comb today, the ghost would say. You whispered, I love you, under the cherry tree. She repeated his private conversations word for word. She described gifts he had bought, but not yet given. Her knowledge was impossible. It was terrifying. The merchant was losing his mind. He couldn't sleep. He couldn't eat. He was being stalked by the supernatural. Desperate, he went to a Zen master named Shozan, who lived in the valley. He poured out his story, shaking with fear. Master Shozan listened, stroking his chin. This ghost, he said, is very impressive. She knows everything you do, every detail. Everything, the merchant cried. She is omniscient. Wonderful, Shozan said. You should admire such a powerful spirit. Tonight, when she comes, I want you to praise her. Tell her she is the wisest ghost in the world. Tell her she can hide nothing from you." And then, Shozen handed the merchant a large bag of soybeans. "Grab a handful of these beans. Do not count them. Hold them tight. Challenge the ghost. Say to her, 'If you know everything, tell me exactly how many beans are in my hand.' If she gets it right, break off your engagement. If she fails, you will know she is not a ghost, but a creation of your own mind." That night, the ghost appeared, ranting about a letter the merchant had written that morning. "You are amazing," the merchant said, suppressing his tremble. "You know everything. I bow to your power." "Yes," the ghost preened. "I know all." "Then tell me," the merchant said, thrusting out his closed fist full of beans, "exactly how many beans are in this hand." The ghost stopped. She stared at the hand. The silence stretched. The pale figure began to waver. She looked confused. I don't know," she whispered, and in that moment of not knowing, she vanished. The illusion collapsed. She could not know the number, because the merchant himself did not know the number. She was not a spirit from the underworld. She was a projection of his own guilt and memory. She only knew what he knew. The merchant slept soundly for the first time in months. This story tells us about the ghosts that haunt our sleep. The ghost of "I messed up today." The ghost of "what if I get sick?" The ghost of "I'm not good enough." These ghosts seem real. They seem to know all our secrets. They whisper our deepest fears back to us. But they are only projections of our own mind. They only have the power we give them. When you challenge them with reality, when you look at the simple beings of the present moment, they vanish. They cannot survive in the light of direct inquiry. They are smoke. You are the fire. In the twilight years of the samurai, as the swords were being laid down for the last time, there lived a giant of a man named Master Yamao. He was a legendary swordsman, a tutor to the emperor himself, and a Zen master of the highest order. Despite his high rank and connection to the imperial court, Yamao lived in a state of poverty that baffled his peers. He wore tattered robes. His wooden sandals were worn thin. His home was not a mansion, but a shelter for the homeless, the hungry, and the wandering monks of Tokyo. He gave away everything he earned. To Yamao, possession was a burden, and generosity was the only true freedom. One day, Yamao arrived at the imperial palace to give a lesson. The emperor, looking at his tutor's frayed kimono and patched sleeves, felt a pang of embarrassment. It was not fitting for the emperor's teacher to look like a beggar. "Master Yamao," the emperor said kindly, "your clothes are a disgrace to your station. Take this gold. Please, buy yourself a fine new set of silk robes so that you may walk with dignity." Yamao bowed deeply, accepted the heavy bag of gold coins, and thanked His Majesty. Weeks passed. The court whispered about the magnificent clothes Yamao would surely buy. But the next time he appeared at the palace, he was wearing the same ragged, patched kimono. It was clean, but it was unmistakably old. The emperor was confused. Perhaps Yamao had not had time to shop. But a month later, Yamao appeared again, still in rags. Finally, the emperor's patience wore thin. "Yamao," he asked, a sharpness in his voice, "what became of the gold I gave you? Did you lose it? I specifically ordered you to buy new clothes." Yamao looked at the emperor with eyes that held the fierce clarity of a hawk. "Your Majesty," he replied calmly, "I did exactly as you commanded. I used the money to buy clothes for your children." The emperor was stunned. "My children?" he stammered. "But the prince and princess have plenty of clothes. What are you talking about?" "I am not speaking of the princes in the palace," Yamao said softly. "I am speaking of the poor children in the city, the orphans, the street urchins, the ones shivering in the winter wind. They are all your children, are they not? A father's duty is to clothe his children before himself. I bought hundreds of coats and blankets for them. As for me, these rags are warm enough." The court fell silent. The emperor looked at his tutor, this man in tattered robes, who possessed a nobility that no silk could ever purchase. He realized that Yamao was wearing the finest clothes of all, the robes of compassion. This story challenges our definition of value. We think value lies in how things look, in status, in approval. We worry about wearing the right mask for the world. But Yamao operated from a deeper logic. He understood that the only thing we truly own is what we give away. He redefined dignity, not as appearance, but as action. Tonight, you might be worrying about your own emperor's clothes, how you appear to others, your status, your success. Strip them off. They are heavy and uncomfortable. Underneath the roles you play, there is a naked, compassionate heart. That is your true dignity. Rest in that simplicity. You don't need to dress up for your dreams. If Yamao challenged the emperor, Master Shogen challenged the very structure of Zen itself. Shogen was the student of the great Master Mudo. For 20 years, they lived together in a small hermitage, practicing a Zen that was stripped of all rituals and pretense. Mudo was getting old, and he knew his time was short. One winter evening, Mudo called Shogen to his bedside. The old master reached under his pillow and pulled out a book wrapped in brocade. "Shogen," Mudo rasped, his voice weak but serious. "This book has been passed down for 7 generations. It contains the secret teachings of our lineage, written by the ancestors themselves. I have added my own notes to it. It is the proof of your succession. Take it. It is the most precious thing I own." This book was the holy grail of their order. Possessing it meant you were the official successor. It was the passport to authority, respect, and power. Shogen looked at the book. He didn't reach for it. "If the book is so important," Shogen said, casually, "you had better keep it. I don't need it. I received your teaching directly, heart to heart. I have the moon. I don't need the finger pointing at it." I know, Mudo insisted, pushing the book into Shogen's hands. "But it is a symbol. It has been carried by 7 generations of masters. Keep it, for the sake of the ancestors." Shogen sighed. He took the book. He felt its weight, the weight of history, of expectation, of institutional power. They were sitting near a brazier, where charcoal coals were glowing red hot. Without a moment's hesitation, Shogen tossed the sacred book into the fire. Whoosh! The dry paper caught instantly. The brocade curled and blackened. The secret teachings of 7 generations turned into smoke. Master Mudo, who had never raised his voice in anger in 40 years, shouted in shock. "What are you doing? That is madness." Shogen looked at his teacher, his face illuminated by the flames of the burning scriptures. He shouted back, his voice like thunder, "What are you saying?" In that shout, the transmission was complete. Mudo stopped. He looked at the fire, then at Shogen. A smile spread across his wrinkled face. He realized that by burning the book, Shogen had proved he understood the contents perfectly. The truth is not in paper. It is not in words. It is in the fire of the present moment. Shogen burned the bridge to the past, so he could walk fully in the now. This is a lesson for us when we cling to our books, our past achievements, our old stories, our credentials. We think these things define us. We hold on to them like security blankets. But to find deep sleep and true peace, you have to be willing to burn the book. Burn the story of, "I am an insomniac." Burn the story of, "I had a bad day." Burn the need for approval. When you throw the script into the fire, what is left? Just you, naked, real, and free. The smoke clears, and only the truth remains. The merchant who dissolved a ghost with a handful of beans. The tutor who clothed orphans with the emperor's gold. the student who burned the sacred scriptures to honor the teaching. What do these three figures have in common? They dared to step outside the box of convention. They understood that reality is not made of rules, it is made of truth. Most of our suffering comes from following the rules of our own mind without questioning them. Rule: if I don't sleep now, tomorrow will be a disaster. Rule: I need to be perfect to be loved. Rule: my thoughts are facts. These masters teach us to break the rules. When the mind says, I'm haunted by worry, be like the merchant. Challenge the ghost. Ask it to count the beans. Look at the worry and ask, is this actually true right now? When the mind says, you need to look successful, be like Yamao. Redefine success. Maybe success tonight isn't about solving everything. Maybe it's just about being kind to your tired body. When the mind says, you need to figure this out, be like Shojin. Throw the book in the fire. You don't need to figure it out. You just need to be here. This kind of radical freedom is scary at first, but it leads to the deepest peace. It is the peace of knowing that you are not bound by your history or your habits. You are free to respond to this moment in a completely new way. Tonight, give yourself permission to be unconventional. If you can't sleep, don't fight it. Rest. If you are worried, welcome the worry like a guest. Break the pattern, burn the script, and in the space you create, let the silence enter. High in the misty mountains of China, the Chan monasteries were not places of idle contemplation. They were hives of activity. The masters understood that Zen was not just about sitting on a cushion. It was about moving through the world with awareness. The greatest champion of this working Zen was Master Hyakujo. He was a revolutionary who established a new rule for monastic life. A day of no work is a day of no eating. Hyakujo lived by this rule faithfully. Even when he reached the ripe old age of 80, he was out in the gardens every morning at dawn. He raked the leaves, pruned the pine trees, and swept the courtyard. His movements were slow but deliberate, a moving meditation. His students, however, were distressed. Master, they pleaded, you are too old for this heavy labor. You have taught us for decades. Please, sit and rest. Let us do the work for you. Hyakujo just smiled and kept raking. I am not working, he said. I am dancing with the leaves. The students grew more desperate. They couldn't bear to see their frail teacher toiling in the heat. So, they devised a plan. One night, while Hyakujo slept, they hid his gardening tools. They hid his rake, his hoe, and his broom. Now, they thought, he will have to rest. The next morning, Hyakujo searched for his tools. When he couldn't find them, he understood what his well-meaning students had done. He didn't get angry. He didn't scold them. He simply went to his room, sat down on his cushion, and closed his eyes. When the breakfast bell rang, Hyakujo did not appear. When the lunch drum sounded, his door remained closed. When dinner was served, his seat was empty. The students became terrified. Is he sick? Is he dying? They gathered outside his door. Master, please come out. Please eat. Hyakujo spoke from behind the paper screen. No work, no food. The students realized their mistake. They had tried to take away his burden, but they had taken away his dignity. They had misunderstood that for Hyakujo, work was not a chore. It was his way of participating in the universe. It was his offering. Shamed, they returned his tools. The next morning, the 80-year-old master was back in the garden, sweeping the leaves, a look of pure contentment on his face. That evening, he ate his rice with deep gratitude. This story reminds us that Buddhist meditation is not an escape from life. It is an engagement with it. Hyakujo teaches us the sanctity of the ordinary, the sweeping of a floor, the washing of a dish, the folding of laundry. These are not obstacles to peace. They are the path to peace. When you treat every action as a sacred ritual, the struggle disappears. Tonight, think of your sleep preparation as Hyakujo's gardening. brushing your teeth, pulling up the covers, turning off the light. Do not rush these things. Do them with the reverence of a master raking the sand. No presence, no peace. But with presence, even the simplest act becomes a gateway to the divine. In the golden age of Kyoto, there lived a boy monk named Ichiro. He was a mischievous prodigy, known for his quick wit and his ability to turn any situation upside down. He served a strict master who owned a very precious antique teacup. This cup was a national treasure, hundreds of years old, fragile as an eggshell. One afternoon, while cleaning the master's quarters, Ichiro's hand slipped. The precious cup fell. Crash. It shattered into a dozen jagged pieces on the stone floor. Ichiro froze. This was a disaster. The master loved that cup more than his own robes. Punishment would be severe, but Ichiro was no ordinary boy. He didn't panic. He didn't cry. He heard the footsteps of his master approaching down the hallway. Thinking quickly, Ichiro scooped up the broken shards and hid them behind his back. He stood in the center of the room, looking innocent. The master entered. "Ichiro," he asked, "what are you doing?" "Master," Ichiro said, his face solemn, "I have a theological question. Why do people have to die?" The master was taken aback by the serious tone. "Well," he explained gently, "it is the law of nature. Everything that is born must die. Everything that comes together must fall apart. We should not grieve, for it is the way of the universe. When the time comes, we must let go." "I see." Ichiro nodded thoughtfully. "So, when the time has come, there is nothing we can do." "Nothing," affirmed the master. Ichiro brought his hands out from behind his back, revealing the pile of broken ceramics. "Master," he said, "it was time for your teacup to die." The master stared at the shards. He felt the rise of anger, the attachment to his treasure. But then he looked at Ichiro's face, and he heard his own words echoing back to him. Everything that comes together must fall apart. The anger dissolved into a laugh. "You rascal," the master said, shaking his head. "You have used my own dharma against me." In that moment, the master was liberated. The cup was gone, but the lesson remained. Ichiro had taught him that understanding impermanence is easy when it's about other things, but the real test is when it's your teacup. This story is a balm for our own mistakes. We break things. We mess up relationships. We lose opportunities. We lie awake, replaying these broken moments, trying to glue the pieces back together with worry. But Ichiro invites us to say, it was time for that moment to die. The mistake happened. It is gone. It is shards on the floor. You cannot unbreak the cup, but you can accept the breakage with humor and grace. Tonight, whatever broken pieces you are holding behind your back, bring them out. Show them to the universe. Say, it was time, and let them go. The path of Zen is usually one of ascending the mountain, gaining wisdom, gaining respect, gaining students. But for Master Togen, the path was one of descending into the valley. Togen was a famous abbot. He had a large temple, hundreds of disciples, and the admiration of the city. But he felt the golden chains of fame tightening around him. He saw that his students were worshipping him, not the truth. He saw that he was becoming a prisoner of his own success. So, one morning, he did the unthinkable. He walked away. He left a note. "Do not look for me." He vanished into the slums of Kyoto. He traded his silk robes for rags. He let his hair grow wild. He lived under bridges with the beggars, the lepers, and the outcasts. He ate scraps from the garbage. He slept on the cold earth. Years passed. A former disciple, searching for his lost master, finally spotted him in a crowd of beggars. He was shocked. The great Togen, covered in dirt, sharing a bowl of old rice with a stray dog. "Master," the disciple cried, falling to his knees in the mud. "Please, return to us. The temple is empty without you. We need you." Togun looked at him with clear, bright eyes. "I am happy here," he said. "I have no responsibilities. I have no reputation to defend. I am free." "But Master," the disciple pleaded, "if you come back, I will do anything. I will live however you tell me." Togun smiled mischievously. "Anything? All right. Spend 3 days with me here. Live as I live. If you can do it, I will consider returning." The disciple agreed. For 2 days, he tried. He wore the rags. He begged for food. But his mind was screaming. He was disgusted by the filth, terrified of the disease, humiliated by the stares of passers-by. On the 3rd night, a fellow beggar died in his sleep next to them. Togun and the disciple carried the body to the hills to bury it. When they returned, Togun sat down and began to eat the dead man's leftover food. Here, Togun offered a handful to the disciple. "Don't let it go to waste." The disciple gagged. He recoiled in horror. He couldn't do it. His attachment to hygiene, to propriety, to civilization was too strong. "I see," Togun said gently. "You are not ready to be free. You still divide the world into clean and dirty, good and bad. Go back to the temple. Build your statues. I will stay here in the real world." The disciple left, humbled. Togun remained, a diamond in the dust. This story is extreme, but it points to a subtle truth about our anxiety. We are anxious because we are defending a boundary. We are defending our clean life against the dirty parts, the pain, the uncertainty, the loss. Togun showed that when you have nothing to defend, you have nothing to fear. When you can sit in the mud and find it sacred, you are untouchable. You don't need to become a beggar, but you can practice the beggar's mind tonight. Drop the need to be impressive. Drop the need to be clean of negative thoughts. Accept the scraps of rest you get. When you stop demanding a banquet, even a crust of bread tastes like a feast. When you stop demanding perfect sleep, even resting your eyes feels like grace. The gardening hoe of Hyakujo, the broken cup of Ichiro, the beggar's bowl of Togun, these are not holy relics. They are ordinary things. But in the hands of these masters, they became gateways to the infinite. These stories teach us that Zen is not something that happens on a mountaintop. It is something that happens in the kitchen, in the office, in the bedroom. It is what the ancients called chop wood, carry water. Before enlightenment, chop wood, carry water. After enlightenment, chop wood, carry water. The action doesn't change. The mind changes. Hyakujo didn't just rake leaves, he raked his mind. Ichiro didn't just clean up a mess, he cleaned up his attachment. Togun didn't just eat scraps, he ate his ego. This is living Zen. It means your life exactly as it is right now is your practice. You don't need to go to a monastery to find peace. Your bedroom is the monastery. Your pillow is the meditation cushion. Your racing mind is the koan you are trying to solve. And the solution to the koan is always the same: presence. Being here for the sweeping, being here for the breaking, being here for the resting. Tonight, practice living Zen. When you fluff your pillow, do it with your whole heart. When you pull the blanket up, feel the texture of the fabric. When you close your eyes, witness the darkness. Don't try to escape your life to find sleep. Go deeper into your life, into the sensation, into the now, and sleep will find you there. We come now to the ultimate source. The river of all these stories flows back to a single ocean, the final moments of the Buddha himself. Picture a grove of sala trees in ancient India. The air is thick with the scent of blossoms. The Buddha, 80 years old, weary from a lifetime of walking the dusty roads, lies on his side. He is surrounded by his disciples, monks, who have followed him for decades. Weeping silently, the Buddha opens his eyes. They are not the eyes of a dying man, but the eyes of the universe, witnessing itself. He speaks, and his voice is not a whisper, but a vibration that hums in the very bones of the earth. He does not give a technique. He does not give a rule. He gives a perspective, a view from the summit of existence. Monks, he says, listen closely. I consider the positions of kings and rulers as dust motes dancing in a sunbeam. Think of that. All the power, all the wars, all the empires, just dust floating in the light. Meaningless, weightless. I observe treasures of gold and gems as so many bricks and pebbles scattered on a path. Your bank account, your possessions, the things you worry about losing, they are just stones. I look upon the finest silken robes as tattered rags. I see the myriad worlds of the universe as small seeds of a fruit. The Buddha is pulling the camera back, 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 until the earth is a speck, until your problems are invisible. He is dismantling the heavy structures of the world that weigh us down. I perceive the teachings of the world to be the illusions of magicians. I discern the highest conception of emancipation as a golden brocade, seen in a dream. Even enlightenment, he says, is just a dream. Even the path is a dream. Why? Because you are already there. You don't need a path to get to where you are. I see Buddhist meditation as a pillar of a mountain. I view the holy path as flowers appearing in one's eyes. And finally, he looks at his weeping students, and with infinite compassion, he delivers the ultimate truth. I look upon the judgment of right and wrong as the serpentine dance of a dragon, and the rise and fall of beliefs as but traces left by the four seasons. It is all a dance. It is all a season. The winter of your sorrow, the summer of your joy, the spring of your awakening, they are just weather passing through the sky of your awareness. The Buddha closes his eyes. He enters the final meditation. He does not die. He simply stops waving. The wave returns to the ocean. This teaching is the ultimate medicine for insomnia. Why? Because insomnia is an obsession with the small self. I need this. I fear that. The Buddha invites you to the cosmic view. Your sleeplessness is a dust mote in a sunbeam. Your worry is a pebble on the path. Your busy mind is just the trace of a season. When you see how small it is, the weight lifts. You can put down the burden of the world. You can let the dust settle. You can join the Buddha in the great, silent ocean of rest. In the Kamakura period, a master named Kudo returned to Japan after years of studying the deepest mysteries of Zen in China. He was the first to bring a new, silent transmission to the islands. His reputation was so great that the emperor summoned him to the palace. Master Kudo, the emperor commanded, sitting on his chrysanthemum throne, I have heard much of the Zen of China. Preach to me. Reveal the essence of this new teaching. The court fell silent. The scribes readied their brushes to record the sermon. The nobles leaned in, expecting a lecture on philosophy, ethics, or metaphysics. Kudo stood before the emperor. He was dusty from the road, wearing a simple straw hat. He did not speak. He did not bow. He did not chant. Slowly, from the folds of his robe, he produced a short bamboo flute. He raised it to his lips. He took a breath that seemed to draw in the mountains, the rivers, and the sky. Fu. He played a single note. One short, clear, piercing note. The sound hung in the vast hall. It vibrated against the gold-leafed walls. It cut through the air like a sword. It contained everything: sorrow, joy, life, death, the cry of a newborn, the silence of a grave. And then, it was gone. Kudo lowered the flute. He looked at the emperor. He bowed once, turned on his heel, and walked out of the palace. He was never seen at court again. The courtiers were outraged. How rude, they cried. He didn't say anything, but the emperor sat frozen on his throne, tears streaming down his face. He said everything, the emperor whispered. Kudo had bypassed the intellect. He didn't give the emperor words to think about. He gave him an experience to feel. The single note, was the sound of the present moment. It arose from silence and returned to silence. This is the music of your life. Your life is not a long, complicated story. It is a series of single notes. Breath in, breath out, heartbeat. We complicate it with our commentary. Why is this note so sad? Will the next note be happy? Kudo teaches us. Just play the note. Tonight, let your breath be Kudo's flute. Don't think about the breath. Just hear it. One note, then silence, then another note. That is all there is. In the space between the notes, you will find the emperor's tears, and you will find your sleep. Near the temple of Master Banyul, there lived a blind man. Because his eyes were closed to the world of forms, his ears had opened to the world of truth. He could hear things. Others missed the tremor of a lie, the tightness of greed, the hollowness of false praise. I navigate the world by sound, the blind man told a friend, and I have learned that people are rarely one thing. When they say, "Congratulations," I hear a secret hiss of envy. When they say, "I am sorry for your loss," I hear a faint hum of relief that it wasn't them. People are split. Their words go one way, their hearts go another. But the blind man continued, his face softening. There is one voice that is different. The voice of Master Banyul. When he speaks, the blind man said, "It is like a bell. When he is happy, I hear only happiness. When he is sad, I hear only sadness. There is no gap. There is no shadow. He is whole." This observation reveals the final secret of the Zen masters. They are whole. They are not fighting themselves. Most of us are exhausted because we are living a double life. We act confident, but feel insecure. We act nice, but feel angry. We try to sleep, but we are afraid of letting go. This internal friction creates a noise that keeps us awake. Master Banyul had no friction. He was transparent. His inside matched his outside. This is the state of unity. Tonight, you can practice this unity. You don't need to be a master. You just need to stop pretending. If you are tired, admit you are tired. If you are afraid, admit you are afraid. Don't try to be a good sleeper. Be an honest human. When you stop hiding from yourself, the internal war ends. The noise in your head quiets down because there is no one left to argue with. You become like Banyul's voice, simple, clear, and true. And in that simplicity, the blind man within you, the part of you that listens to the truth, can finally relax. We have walked a long road together tonight. We have emptied our cups with the professor. We have burned the hut with the old woman. We have swept the leaves with the master. We have become the ocean with the wrestler. We have heard the single note of the flute. All these Buddhist stories have been pointing to one thing. Not a place you need to go, but a place you already are. The silence that heard these stories is your true nature. The awareness that witnessed these words is the Buddha mind. Now, the stories are ending. The words are fading. The concepts are dissolving like mist in the morning Sunday. You don't need to remember them. You don't need to understand them. They have done their work. They have swept the dust from the mirror. Notice the silence in the room now. It is not empty. It is full of presence. It is full of you. Notice the heaviness of your body. It is the earth holding you, claiming you, grounding you. You are safe. You are whole. You are complete. There is nothing left to do, nothing left to fix, nothing left to carry. Let the book burn. Let the cup break. Let the ghost vanish. What remains is this breath, and this breath, and this. If these stories have brought you a measure of peace, if they have helped you touch the edge of spiritual awakening, then we are connected in this great web of silence. You can return here anytime you need to remember who you are. For now, let go of the listener, let go of the stories, drift into the Buddhist philosophy of pure rest. Deep, dark, velvety sleep is waiting. Good night.